Grab your copies of Shakespeare, Wargamers, because today we are taking another stab at Barbarian Prince. Unlike Hamlet, poor old Cal Arath here, when his father is deposed and a usurper sits on his throne, he doesn't mope about acting like a psychopath for 3 long hours. He grabs his sword, smuggles his way out of the country, finds 500 gold and returns to pay off the mercenaries that work for the usurper, cuts the fool's head off, sticks it on a pike, and sticks it on a wall. Or he goes across the Tragoth River and dies an ignominious and unheralded death. We're not sure which, probably going to be the latter, unless we make some good calls. So, the way this game works, first thing we got to do is figure out what our wits are. Hey, we got a wits of 5, that's pretty good. The second thing we got to do is figure out what our starting wealth is. And to do that, we roll a d6, we get a 6, and we cross-reference the wealth code here to find we have 4 gold. Not bad at all. Unlike the last episode of the Barbarian Prince, instead of showing you everything all at the same time, I'm just going to go ahead and track over here. I'll keep you updated with the changes, but we're going to focus on in here on Cal Arath's journey. That's the primary thing. Lots of pretty colors. You guys can see what kind of choices we have to make and why we're making them on this. Before we set the camera up, for reals though, we need to figure out where Cal Arath starts his journey. And to do that, we have to roll a die. Let me find the rules section real quick. This is the events book. As you can see, E001 is the first of the events, and anytime I'm showing you these rules and you see something to the effect of, like this 0101, those are hex numbers, but if you see something like E002, that's what that means. So we got to roll a d6 and compare it to this line right here. On a 6, we're going to begin in hex 1801, and that's going to be right over here in the far northeast corner of the map. This is a tricky one. He starts in the mountains, and mountains are notoriously hard to find your way out of. Any day that you spend north of the Tragoth River, there's a chance that the usurper's minions hunt you down. So we got to get across this river as soon as possible. And to do that, we have to leave. Well, the first thing we have to do is cross that river. To cross a river, we have to check this number out. We're lost on an 8+. So we roll to see if we cross. And on a 6, we're good. We made it across. But there's a chance as we're crossing that we encounter an event. And with a roll of a 6, we did not. So the good news is on the first day of our adventure, we made it across the river. We don't have to worry about pursuit. But we do need to see if we get lost stumbling our way out of the mountains. So we have another chart here. And I probably won't keep flipping back just for the lost and whatnot. So I need to roll a 6 or less. On a 7 or higher, and I got this 7, naturally, I'm still stuck in the mountains. So I'm over the river, but I'm still in the mountains. And that ends my first day on Cal's journey to retake the homeland. So we advance the counter to 2, and we don't have a meal, so we are starving. That may become important later. On day 2, we're still trying to find our way out of the mountains and into the hills. So we roll where you can see it, and we're still out of luck. So we go to starving -2. Our carrying capacity is halved, but we're not carrying anything. I think that's penalties on combat. Hopefully, here on day 3, we don't get into any combat, and we don't. The good news is we're out of the mountains, we're into the hills. The even better news is, at the end of the day, because we're in the hills, we can, so each of these, whether we're on the road or in the mountains, you can't hunt. But now that we are so close, there we go. Yes, you can hunt when you're in the hills. That's good news. So the way that hunting works, you take your current endurance, ours is actually 7. You cut that in half. Add your wits, that's a 12, and then you subtract a 2d6. With a result of 7, we find 5 food. Now at the evening meal, we're going to eat 2 of those. So we'll be left with 3 food. And those negate all of the effects of the starvation. And we have 3 more days worth of food. But as you can see, we also face our very first choice. we can move to any one of these 3 hexes. And the real question here is, do we want to try to cross the mountains to take this road down to the Temple of Jean, Augur? Or do we want to slide along these woods and try to cut through the desert? Let me go ahead and adjust the camera a little bit here so we can see a little more long-term options. The Kabir Desert has oases. It's very easy to get lost in there. We can go through the pass. We can follow this road, which you can't get lost on the road. So I'm a little kind of on the fence here. Why don't we take a day to rest? All right, so it's day 4 now. And we're going to try to find a little bit more food. So we hunt, and this time our number is 13 minus 6. We find 7 food. So our total food goes up to 10. We eat 1 to 9, and on day 5, we have, now bear in mind, we got 9 food, that's all we can carry. You can carry 10, but 9's fine. So now we got enough food, we can actually go ahead and move down here. I think we'll just head due south first and then cut over. Same rules apply. We're trying to find our way out of the hills. So we get lost on an 8 or higher. All right, we're lost. So we don't actually move. And since we're still in the hills, we have to see if we have an event, which happens on a 10 plus. No event, good sign. We can still hunt because we're still in the hills, and we actually find, we get 2 food, which is fine because that means we eat 1, takes us down to 10, and call it a day. So day 6, trying to get across out of the hills, and we got lost on an 8. So we're still in the hills. We'll go ahead and hunt, and we get 1 food. 10's all we can carry. We could leave a cache here if we wanted to. We've got 7. We eat 1, that's 6. We can leave a cache with 6 food in it right here. And then if we work our way back up this way, we can pick that food up without hunting. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll advance to the 7th day. So it takes us a full week, and we're still lost in the hills. We'll go ahead and hunt again. And we get 8 more food, so that cache now has a total of, 15 food in it. So I went ahead and wrote 15 down. We defaced the debased currency. And we're up to the 2nd week, day 1. Sometimes this game moves faster than others. We've still moved a grand total of 1 hex in a full week. We're still lost in the woods. We can add to our cache. We're going to add a total of 8 to our cache, so it's up to 23. And it's on to day 2. This time, we do not get lost. So we're able to move. Let me go ahead and write down 23 so we remember how much food is buried there. I have played games of this where those caches made all the difference, could have made all the difference in the world. And they're buried right there in those hills. So like I said, we moved down to the south. We got to see if we have an event in those mountains. Events happen on a 9 or less. It does not. So we eat 1 food, taking us down to 9, and we move up to day 3 of the week, and we are going to try to head for the end of the road here. And on a 10, we are definitely lost. Now, we can't hunt in the mountains. That's a problem. No events, so we eat down to 8 food. Day goes up, and we move on to the next day, trying to find our way out of the mountains. Get lost on a 7 plus. So we eat a food. Day goes up. Moving on. Oh, I forgot, you know what? I forgot to check. This is an event. Go ahead and move that counter back, move that one up. So we have an event in the mountains. And the way events work, this is the meat and potatoes of the game. You got a chart here. We're going to roll a green die for the row and a yellow die for the column. So it's going to be row 4, column 3. We come down to the 4 and over to the 3. We have heavy rains today here in the mountains. Event 07. Here you see it in black and white. Cold, driving rains hinder man and beast. You must stop moving today and roll 1 die for each character in your party. That's me. On a 5 or a 6, Cal Arath caught the affliction. I think you know which disease this is. Yeah, we're going topical today. And suffers 1 wound. So our endurance goes down to 8. At the start of tomorrow, roll 1 die. Well, first thing we got to do is eat that food. So we're down to 7. Day goes up to 5. Roll a die. A result of 4 or higher means the rains continue. They do not. Oh, good, good, good. We don't use mounts, so that doesn't matter. We're not leading animals. If you travel at all, any characters we haven't caught. Okay, at the start of the day after tomorrow. All right. It means the rains let up. It doesn't say explicitly, but I think the reasonable assumption there is that with the rains letting up, today is a day like any other. So we had one heavy day of rain. We took one wound, and we're going to try to get out. Oh, let's go back up so we can see that. All right, we're still trying to get out of the mountains. So we are on day 5 of the second week, and we get lost on 7+. So we're still caught in the mountains. Does anything happen to us? No. Eat down to 6. Day goes up to 6, and you know, I'm going to go ahead and rest for a day. When you rest for a day, you eat a food, you heal a wound, we're back up to the top, and now we've already gotten through 2 weeks. Still trying to get out of the mountains, still failing. We're down to 4, up to week 3, and we check again. With a 3, we finally move off down to here. And now, because we're out of the mountains, we got to check to see what happens in the grasslands. And on a grasslands, you have a, what do they call it? I think they call it countryside. As you can see here, a countryside event happens on a 9+. So let's go ahead and roll for that event up here in the countryside. And we got a 4 and a 3. So once again, I think that's the same thing, right? 4 wolves, countryside, E075. Well, I hope they have a lot of gold. We're trying to find 500 gold, right? This event is postponed until after you finish your evening meal. Okay, so we're down to 3 food. At night, a hunting pack of wolves. Roll 3 dice for the number of wolves, each of which... Oh, you roll 3 dice for the number of wolves? You've got to be kidding me. 8 wolves. Okay. This sounds like fun. Wolves. 8 wolves, combat of 3, endurance of 3. They may surprise you. To see if you're surprised, roll a d6. And if this is higher than your wits, so on a 6, I'm surprised. Nope, not surprised. That's good. This is the pertinent part. None of this applies. You cannot escape from the wolf attack. So I have to fight 8 critters. Okay. So let's talk about how combat works. And the worst part is here, they don't even have any treasure. I'm going to go through all this for exactly 0 loot. What a bother. Just for giggles, I forgot you're supposed to hunt before you eat, so I managed to find 3 more food, which puts me at 6 at the end of the day. The way combat works, you got to look at this table here. The good news is I get to roll first, and combat is pretty simple. When you attack, you compare your combat skill. I've got an 8, they've got a 5, so when I roll, I get a +5 to my result. When they attack me, they get a -5 with a couple of simple modifiers. So on the first attack, and I'm just going to go right down the line here, I roll a total of 7 plus my 5, that's 12. So I do 2 wounds, and this is their combat skill, this is their wounds. So I did 2 wounds to this guy. Now, they get to attack me. And it's a little bit awkward because I'm going to have to roll 8 times to see what happens. This first guy has a -2 to his modifier, so he's at a total of -7. He scores a 2, and you can see there's no 2 on the chart. So this first wounded wolf does no damage. The second one has a -1, so I take 1 wound for him. This third guy has 10, -5 is a 5, so that's 2 wounds. This third guy is got a 5, which becomes a 0. Fourth guy is a 1, which is nothing. So I've taken 2 wounds so far. That's number 6. Number 7 gives a result of 2, which is nothing. So I've only taken 2 wounds. And then this 7 becomes a 2. And that last one is no wounds. Okay, so I got through with just 2 wounds. But now I have a -1 to my roll. So when I attack this guy, I'm only fighting at a plus. Well, hang on now. Let me think about this. The target, I'm at +2 because he's half dead. But I have 1 wound, so I'm at that becomes a +1. So I'm only a +6 for this. And with a result of 6, we look for a 12. 2 wounds means I killed 1 wolf. Hey, that's great. That means he only gets to attack me 7 times. And again, okay, so there's no modifiers at this point to their rolls. I'm going to keep knocking myself over. So they just did a straight -3. So the 3 means we get 1 wound, 2 wounds. For the 3rd guy, the 6 is a nothing. For the 4th guy, the 6 is a nothing. For the 5th guy, we get a 7, which is a nothing. For the 6th guy, I think I'm on the 6th guy, I get a 3, which is 1 wound, so that's 4 wounds. And for the 7th guy, we get a 5, which is another wound. So I take a total of 5 wounds, which puts me down to 2. I get to attack them. I am half dead. That's really not a good roll. I have a -2. I'm only at a +3. So this 3 becomes a 6, which is nothing. And then they attack me. And if I get hit twice, I'm dead. They get a +2. So they're a -3. Nobody has any wounds. So that 8 becomes a 5. That's 1 wound. That 8 becomes a 5. I'm unconscious. And when I fall unconscious, these are wolves. So they tear me limb from limb. And that, my friends, is why Barbarian Prince is such a great game. This is a brutal game where one wrong encounter at the wrong time spells the end of the game. It's very much a roguelike in analog format. You really got to hope those numbers come up. It took me 3 weeks to go 1, 2, 3 hexes, and then I got eaten by wolves. How fantastic is that, huh? This is a game that when you beat it, you really feel like you did something. This is absolutely not an everybody gets a trophy game. This is everybody beats their head against the wall for 30, 40 attempts until they get it right. And I want to show you how good it feels to get it right. I don't think I'm going to play the game 30 or 40 times, but I think this is going to be a regular staple here at the channel because there is a lot to discover in these rules. This is a rough starting point. Would have been great to get down there to the Temple of Hurt or whatever. What was it again? The Temple of Zur, to show you what's inside the temple. There's actually a lot of different things that can happen inside the temple. And one time, I even found victory there. So hopefully I can show you that in a future episode. In fact, the next episode of The Joy of Wargaming will be the joy of beating your head against the wall of Barbarian Prince. I hope you'll be there. And even if you are, even if you're not, remember, Mr. Wargaming is praying for you.